Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
So we're going to talk about something called a spiritual awakening. And she has gone through it. We talked about this in earlier podcasts. When we started talking about it, I had no idea what it was or where we were going with it. And I thought, like many people think, that it's you awaken yourself to be more spiritual, however you define spirituality. Then I come to find out, as we started talking about it, it's way different than that and way deeper than that. And maybe you're going through it, maybe you will encounter it, but it's a off the chart, life-changing thing. She's a spiritual life coach helping people go through it. You can find her at journeytoheavenonearth.com. Alison Klahr is back with us. Welcome back, Alison. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm well. So I figured we'd reset to the beginning when we first started talking, and you started describing this spiritual awakening. Take us back to the beginning. And how did that all happen? You're going through life, and then all of a sudden something changes. What was your first clue that there's something going on here?
I just think over time, in 2020, my life started spiraling out of control. And I think it has been for many years. And then it was just one thing after the other. And when you just hit that rock bottom, I remember like exactly when I knew there was something like different, supernatural. I was sitting on my porch and I was crying and I was alone and I had no one to help me. And I've never been a big prayer. And I prayed to God. I was like, God, please help me. I mean, I was feeling like suicidal almost, like I was almost scared. And when I prayed to God, I looked up into the sky and there's 3 letters. And in the clouds, it said God. And I was just like, whoa. I didn't even think about like taking a photo to show people. I was like, this is for me. And from then on, once I realized it, things just started happening. I started like going through the dark night of the soul. My life started going through like memories that I didn't know I had as a childhood and teenager, and just a lot of darkness and I started healing through it. And spirituality isn't all love and light. It's to get you to the darkness to see the light. We were born little light beings, but the minute we came out of the womb, we saw this bright light. We were spanked around by a doctor. Right there, you got trauma. It's cold, you know. So from right then, you have trauma. And then we are conditioned our entire lives how to act, how to behave, what to think, what to feel. And I think a lot of us knew nothing made sense. Like school to me never made sense. I was always very antsy. Like, why am I here? They're like, we were in this little prison, and our entire lives we've been in a prison. So when you wake up, it's so frightening. You realize you are living in a prison planet. Everything that has been going on in your life has been controlled, and everything that you've ever learned is completely false. So I went into solitude for 2 years, and I taught myself like I had to relearn everything I've ever known. I threw 40 at the time. I was 47, threw it out the window, and just started educating myself on everything else. And I had help from a higher power. So if I needed to know something at a time, a download came in my head, and I just started doing the research. So it's not like I just knew what to look into, or I knew I was going through a spiritual awakening. Everything was like one step, like this level, this level, this level. So it went on for a couple years. It was a wild ride, and I was very young.
I can't, Alison, I can't imagine how that felt. Before we go there, did you have any clue it was coming?
No.
Was life okay? And then one day you're sitting on the porch like, oh, something's not right. I feel just down, and that's where you feel it began.
No, I feel like that's where I noticed it, but now looking back, there's so much darkness going on, especially it started with the pandemic. And that's where a lot of people, millions of people woke up in 2020, but there was a huge awakening in 2012. And then I think it tapered off, and 2020 was another mass awakening. And I wasn't scared of the disease. I was just frightened by the chaos going on around the world, like the protesters. I mean, I was living in chaos. I couldn't drive without some protest running across the street and beating on cars. Like, I remember getting through the line right before and I almost hit them because they were just about to block me. I was the last one through before they started pulling people out of cars. So right there, I'm living in fear. Then you're watching on what goes on in the news, which is what you don't want to do. There was fires all around us, like right by my house. Have you heard about the California fires? I was living through that 2017, 2018, 2019. It was just constant fear. And when I decided to turn off the news is when my world changed. I started seeing the beauty in life. I said, is enough of this. This can't be real. I'm not going to live like this anymore, or I'm going to die. And I decided to save myself. So the first thing I did was turn off the TV. And any medication I was ever put on by doctors, whether it was from ADHD or even face meds, I didn't know it was for depression. So that could have been a thing. I just threw everything out. And that's where like I woke up. My third eye popped open. I saw the world completely different. I saw it for how it really is, that everybody is still asleep too. I
Wow.
mean,
So
yeah.
that, let's go back. You say 2012 was like a period of awakening, or there was some change for all of us. You're saying in 2012?
There is a mass awakening, and I didn't know about it either. It didn't happen for me. And if it does happen for us, we don't know it at the time. But
Hmm.
doing like research and going back into history and stuff, 2012 was a big awakening for a lot of people.
And the reason I'm
This
bringing this up personally, without even detail, that was a eye-opening year for me, which charted some course later in life. So that's why
that
I'm going back to that. And maybe
yeah.
there's some connection. I can even tell you it was later in the year. And it was one of those things that, yeah, I just kind of put it in the rear view. And it didn't really make sense until later in life, a few years ago, like during COVID. Not even kidding. Not, I'm not saying
Mhm.
this because you're saying it,
Oh, I
but
know.
that was a wake up number one, and then COVID for me, and I didn't have a spiritual awakening, but it was wake up number two, and it is connected. Yeah, they were connected. Let's put it that way. So
So
interesting.
no, it is true. Like I'm saying, we all are having these awakenings, but we don't know they're happening. Like there's some kind of destruction in our life that just something needs to change. Life-changing events that
Mm,
might feel so horrible at the time, but are so good for the better. Like this awakening that was so dark for me turned out to be the most beautiful thing I ever seen, like or ever happened to me. I'm a completely different person. I can't remember living my life the way I lived my entire life was in fear. It was in complete darkness. So um everyone's having these awakenings. They're just maybe not as intense. Mine was intense because my purpose on this planet is to help people get through it. I thought it was to wake them up and shake them. That's not going to work. Everyone has to do it on their own time. They got to hit their own rock bottom. I'll be here to guide them out to show you that you're not alone. A lot of people were sent into psych wards. They were put on medications. They were called schizophrenic and bipolar. There's a lot of suicides because people weren't understanding. And that's what I'm here to prevent. To say, this is what's happening to you. You're not crazy. I'm going to get you through it. And I've actually gotten several people through it, and their life is amazing now. And I just did this out of like because they're friends and family. And I'm like, I'm going to make this a career because I do not want anyone to go through what I went through.
let's go through that period, that 2 year period. What was that like day to day? You say it was dark, it was challenging, scary.
Yeah,
What was like a
it was a
normal
lot of
day?
supernatural things. I was seeing spirits, I was seeing demons, I was fighting off, I was writing things that I didn't know what they meant. And then it came to fruition. My superpowers started coming out. I was a channeler. I was channeling things. I stopped my first channel, and no one knows this, a small handful, and no one believes really besides one or two people. And one of the persons was there and still didn't believe it. I stopped a murder from happening from some loved ones. I was called crazy, even though I said at this time, this is going to happen. This person's going to break in at the time, and it all happened. I
Were
went
these
to the people's
people
house.
were these people you know or knew
Oh
or
yeah. Oh
really?
yeah. I can't even say who,
Yeah.
but like they know
No,
who they
I mean,
are. And we're kind of estranged because of it, because it was so odd. It was so unbelievable that it's better for people to not believe or their life will be unraveled. It's the conditioning. I was in it like 100%. I could not see stuff. And what I've gone through, I went with it. A lot of us are waking up, but it's so scary. They turn a blind eye and they go on their daily lives and they go back to sleep. That's the problem. We've all been waking up these last 10 plus years, but mine was like so profound. You could not see the stuff that I was going through, and people saw it around me too, and they still had to deny it because it was so dark.
how did you get through 2 years of that? I mean, even just
Myself, my
just describe
animals. You
how.
have to. You have to. It's your life or death. I had to decide, do I want to live or die? And I would have died. So it's like anybody that has that will to live, you're gonna do anything. I'm not some superhero. I'm your average Joe, but people don't realize the strength that they have inside them and how powerful they are
Agreed.
until it's life or death. You do have these powers. We all have them. And this is why the world is going to such mass destruction right now. Everyone is like seeing all these deaths and suicides and just supernatural events with the weather condition, laws that are being made, things that aren't making sense, pedophilia everywhere, because it's here to wake you up. If people can't wake up to this nonsense, then you're not going to survive it regardless. So you're going to be living in a destructive planet. It's for the people to say, no more. I'm done with this nonsense. I'm not going to listen to the government, the control, the prison that I've been my whole life. This doesn't make sense to me. And I'm going to fight back. And when everyone starts doing that, this is what the Great Awakening's for. This is how we are all going to be living in our heaven on earth. People are going to stay behind and people are going to go. And you got to decide which one you want to do, because the time is now, the clock is ticking. And if you're getting the call, go with it and
Mm.
don't be scared, because what's behind you is what you've been living in your whole life and you don't want it anymore. I don't want it anymore. My life gets better and better every single day. I was an alcoholic for 35 years. I didn't even realize it. You know what I mean? Because I was living in fear. Like I needed booze just to survive. I smoked cigarettes, a pack a day. I I quit all that on my own. In that 2 year time, I threw out the cigarettes. I threw out the booze. I said, let's change my life. By doing that, like healing myself, I lost 30 pounds without doing anything. I didn't like go work out. My skin healed. I had skin damage that was like forever. Like my cells were dead. That completely healed. My skin's like baby soft again. Um, I had three torn hamstrings that I had a limp. That's gone. My body healed itself by healing me internally. You
Hmm.
don't need these gimmicks. You don't need medication. It's all money. That's all it is. And it's for destructing you and killing you. And if people don't want to hear it, don't. I don't. I'm going on what worked for me.
In
Look
terms
at
of
me.
the
I'm all,
body.
bleh.
Hey, people don't believe it, but you know what?
No,
I
it's
I do
fine.
believe in a lot, and one of those things is that your body is amazing. It can heal itself, but when there's outside forces or things that you allow in, like stress, anxiety, lack of sleep, which comes from maybe the anxiety, all of that, your body's all haywire. It's out of balance. It can, and then of course, not eating the right food. Once you get kind of in check, you notice these things like, yeah, my skin looks better. Like I feel better. I don't have that problem. I don't have that problem. But you don't realize it when you're in it. You don't realize it when you're in it. So, Alison, would you say that all of us, many of us, most of us went through some kind of wake up in 2012 during COVID, but yours was more extreme because you were picked for a spiritual awakening?
Yeah. Yeah. Going back through now, like looking at my past history and who I was in past lives, and just there's so much to it. I am one of the people on this planet to get people through this. I'm like one of the bridges. It sounds weird. I'm nothing special, but there's a lot of us to do this. And I decided not to turn away from it. And it's like my life's mission. I mean, for sure. And I'm just here to get everybody who wants to do it.
Mm.
Like you said, you notice like your skin, and you have to eat better. No one's coming to save you. You have to make the decision to think better thoughts,
You do.
to not live in fear. And if people go, how do I start? Turn off the TV. I mean, seriously, turn off the news. Like nothing ever good happens, and most of it's not even real. You know what I mean? Like I'm living in California right now, right? What do you see about California?
The weather.
The weather, right? It's going haywire. I don't see that. That's not happening in my world. Yeah, we had a lot of rain, but where they're showing like flooding and stuff, I'm up this street. I just drove down there yesterday. I'm like, not in my world. I don't live there.
So
So it
you
depends on
choose.
if you believe it, it's going to happen. When I
You
believe the
choose.
world was destructing, my life went into complete chaos.
Hmm.
You
Well, you
just
know what? Everything is a choice. So you choose to believe that, or choose not to, or choose to allow it to affect you or not. So you choose not to, and I do the same thing. Life is around us. If you allow people to influence you, stress you out, control you, that's your choice. And you're making not a great choice for yourself. And you got to be prepared for the repercussions that can come from that, from making that choice. But everything we do is a choice.
well, it proves how powerful we are. We are one of the most powerful beings. People don't realize like how powerful you guys are. If I could even tell you some stuff and you just be like, okay, this is getting too wild. But if you can literally, your thoughts can change your reality, how is that not powerful right there? Like
Right.
right there, that is magical. I'm like, my life was a dumpster fire because of my thoughts were always negative. I was always living in fear. I was always
Mm-hmm.
saving money for the next crisis. And guess what? That crisis always came. Luckily, I had the money, but I was making the crisis happen.
A
That
hundred
was it.
billion percent. And there
Mhm.
you go. We don't even know that we're derailing ourselves by the thoughts that we put out there or the things that we say. And I can say, honestly, in the last 10, 15 years, things that I said repeatedly, whether they were, complaints or observations or feelings that really were negative and not founded, they all came true.
Yeah. Isn't that
Now that I
crazy?
look back, yeah, I used to
Yeah.
say that. Crap, that came true. Or I used to say that. Oh, that actually came true. And
And you know what you're feeling? You're like, see, I told you I was right. That's who I used to think. I'd be like, I'm going to prove my right. So, like, I want to prove I'm right when good things happen, not when
well,
bad
yeah,
things
yeah.
happen.
Well, it feels good to say you're right, but when you look back to it, then it's like, no, that wasn't right. That was you or me or whoever manifesting it,
Yeah.
asking. Like you learned this when you were a kid. Your parents probably said it to you. Be careful what you ask
Get
for.
get out of my head, Steve. I swear to God, this telepathy that we got going on. I was just thinking parents
But
because
it's true.
exactly
It's true.
like
Be
my mom
careful
would
what you
always
ask
be
for.
like, you can't go out tonight, you're gonna get in trouble. And then I would go out and I get grounded because I got in trouble. Now I look back going, my mom manifested my bad behavior. I blame
Mm.
her now.
Well, but now hold on there. You had the choice to
Oh,
allow that to happen.
I know,
But
but
you
hey,
but you were younger, so you didn't really realize that
yeah,
then.
I didn't know
Um,
better.
You didn't know better, but you know
They should
what?
have known. They're adults. I'm just
But
kidding.
but you know what?
Yeah,
Your parents didn't know that because all they know was from the generation before, and the stuff that my mom said or did. I did the same thing to my kids until I realized, whoa, wait, why? Maybe that's not the best option. Maybe there's another thing, and I'm not saying my mom was wrong. That's just what she believed, and she used what she had, and
exactly. It's
I'm
all
blessed for that.
generation. And this
Yeah.
is what I stopped the generational curses in my family. That was my first mission. I didn't know what my missions were. And that was the first, was to stop the generational curses. And I went through 7 lifetimes of curses I had to heal. So I think
Mm.
why my spiritual awakening, I don't want to scare people away from an awakening. Mine was so intense because I had 7 lifetimes to heal, and I didn't know all this craziness I was healing. It wasn't just my stuff. So
Mm.
when I was like writing stuff down, going, what does this mean? It was like ancestral stuff that was going on. And I can't even like understand half this stuff now. Now I get it, but I was like,
How
wow,
did you
man.
know? How did you know it was a generational thing from way back?
I just during the awakening, you get so many downloads and things start clicking. I can't even tell you. Like I was more like I think my entire like 2 years, it was just a bunch of downloads happening. And now I don't really get that. Now they're just more like soft little downloads that are my thoughts, and I just make my world a better place. But I was getting hammered for a couple of years. Like my ancestors, I had angels, I had people just beating me over the head, throwing me around the wall. It was like poltergeist in my house when no one was around. It seriously was. And I didn't tell anybody, like at all. I couldn't because I didn't want to be locked up into a psych ward. And when a loved one told somebody, some people about their awakening,
Uh,
they were locked up and I went and got them out. And then, they stayed with me for 5 weeks. So I knew before if I tell anybody, I'm going to get locked up. And I told this person, don't tell anyone. And they did. So I already knew how intense that person's was. Not everybody has it so intense. Not everybody has this mission. I have this mission. That's why mine was intense. I look back at my life going, wow, I've gone through a lot of physical abuse, a lot of mental abuse, a lot of emotional abuse in my life. And at the time, I didn't even know it. I thought that was normal. Wait, no one goes through physical, mental, and emotional abuse? I
mm,
didn't know that. And I go, oh, that's why I had to go through it to heal it. So whatever anyone goes through, I'm like, dude, I got you. Like, there's nothing you can tell me that's crazy because of the stuff I just saw in my awakening alone. Nobody knows about it. I'm like writing a book because of the stuff I went through. And not
good for
even just
you.
like my life story. I didn't want to go back on that stuff, but the awakening is so wild.
How did you know that it was over?
Um, when I woke up in the morning, I felt free and happy and love and joy, and the grass was greener, the clouds looked fake, the birds were like everywhere. Nature was following me around like I was, what's her name? The little Disney characters. I felt like a Disney character.
Okay, like either Cinderella or just a,
Yeah,
just a
like
character with
Cinderella was one of
with a
them.
bird flies on their hand and it's like, oh, everything's
That
great.
that was
Here's
my life.
birds
That's when I knew
chirping.
I got through the darkness.
Was it
And
was it
I
a,
live that now.
was it an overnight thing where it was just like, oh, I woke up, wow,
No.
this is very different, and then you probably thought, is
There
this?
were days, there were days where I'd go outside the house and I'm like, what's going on here? There's days and I still see energy, like people like go outside and they get in their car and go to work. There's days that my vibes are so high, like I see static in the air. And I'll ask
Hmm.
people like, do you see that? Does it look like it's raining? And everyone's like, no. And I'm like, okay. So I know it's what's going on in me. Like that means I'm flying high. Like my vibes are high and I like it and I'm feeling bliss and be happy now. Definitely. I get tested all the time. I fail my test sometimes. I lash out here or there, but I'm aware of it. I go back. Why did that trigger me? I was triggered over the weekend on something that is a continuous thing in my life. And I realized why do I keep lashing out over this thing? And I realized this morning, because I won't stop till I finally hammer it down, it's because I feel unsafe. It's something that I have no control over, and it makes me feel unsafe. So what's my next step? I don't know. I got to make decisions on that, but I can't live being triggered on the same thing over and over again. But that's what I do. It's like I'm a normal person. I go through this
Sure.
same problems, but now I know how to go all the way back. Why is it trigger? Fix that problem, move on. Something else will come up later on. But I get through it so much easier. It used to take me months to get over stuff. Now it takes me like a day. Not even, sometimes like an hour. I'm like,
Hmm.
I'm over it.
Well, yeah, it's normal. We've had so much stuff in our past that sometimes things will come up and then you react to them. Sometimes you react a little bit differently, but they're in your past. But we talked off air. Hypnotherapy for me was fantastic to realize those things from childhood and other things that very impactful. All
If
I can say.
any, I would like you to talk about that, because if anyone wants to go on this healing journey, a lot of people do the ayahuasca stuff. I don't know anything about it, so I'm not going to say good or bad. But it's a drug and you have to travel for it. But like hypnotherapy is all around you. And I think that's a great starting, or go to talk to me. We'll get down to like
Sure.
your traumas for people. But if you like hypnotherapy, I think is a good way to really hit that point right there that everybody should be looking into.
Yeah.
So
Well,
how was it for you?
it was impactful. And I knew things in my childhood, not that my childhood was bad, but there are things there that are connected to now. And even going back there and seeing myself as a little boy and being there for myself, like literally in the session, I was hugging myself as a kid. It was like wild, like I was watching TV, but I could have just, shut the whole thing up. I'm done, I'm not doing this anymore. But I, said, I will always be there for you, meaning me as a kid. And that was the starting point of the things that, are connected to now. One session that was, and I felt a big difference a few days after. And, probably go back for more. It's kind of cool.
That I just got the chills. That's huge. I think one of my if anyone goes, what was the biggest moment when you knew that you had to heal? I saw myself hugging myself as a child, sitting on the bed in pigtails and saying to her what I've always wanted to hear. And I was bawling and I felt like, whoa.
Well, you did
And that's
it.
where I knew I have to be there for that little girl. Like you have to be there for that boy that you've been ignoring your whole life.
Yeah.
So now every time like you want to backtrack, go, no, it's not just me. I got to be there for that little inner child inside you.
Well,
So
you
you got
did
to
it.
keep going with that.
You did it without hypnotherapy. And I didn't
Yeah, all
know.
this I did, like everything I did was out, like everyone does all this with ayahuasca and these drugs or DMT and hypnotherapy. I was doing it and I didn't know I was doing it.
But
That's
that's
why
you
I'm like,
that's what you needed to do. And what you just described is what I did and had no
yeah.
idea. And a lot of that was I was bullied as a kid. Was overweight and that's where that was the beginning of other things. Um, well, we're saying the same thing. You already
It's
did it.
beautiful.
You
And
already
no,
did
there's
it.
so many things that people can do to heal themselves. You don't have to wait for some supernatural event. Please don't. I mean, really don't. But
But
if you're starting to feel certain things that aren't right, there are options out there. And I love that. It's not just talking to somebody that's gone through it like me, or hypnotherapy or drug. I mean, there's just so many options, you know what I mean? But the minute you're aware, don't, like you said is a perfect thing. You kept going. You could have just shut it off like we normally do. It's too scary. We don't want to feel emotions because
yeah,
it makes us weak. Feeling emotions is what does not is the strongest thing you can do.
absolutely.
Looking away is weak.
And what you just said is so important that like you went back and was there for yourself as a little girl. There's no reason why you can't do that when you need to. Like I did it once during that session, but I'm thinking now, why don't I just do it anyway? Why don't I just think it? Why don't I just say it when I'm by myself? Because the majority of the stuff that we deal with, the triggers and everything else, the majority, research proven, is between the ages of 0 and 7 and 7 and 14. It's
Yeah.
all right there. It's when you were the most impressionable, and that's where, it started. We're just about out of time. I can't
Yeah.
believe, but I'm glad we talked and I'm glad we went
Yeah.
I'm glad we went there in more depth than the last time we talked about your
Yeah, I think this
spiritual
is the
awakening.
deepest we got. That's little secrets and stuff.
Same here. Um, yeah, journeytoheavenonearth.com is your website. If anybody wants some insight and you have so much, they're going to cut us off. But I'm going to just say this, that book you were talking about, do it.
No, thank you.
Do
Okay.
it.
I've been going back and forth, but
Oh, no, do
thank
it.
you.
When Spirits Awaken. That's the title dropped in my head. I don't know if it's been used already. I think there's a book
I
called The
love it.
Awakening,
It's
but
beautiful.
you should
It's
be
beautiful.
doing it.
I
Alison,
will.
fantastic meeting you, talking with you, and I know we're going to be connected in some way, some
We will.
form in the future. Yeah.
And check the mail. You got something coming for you too.
Oh boy. Hopefully it's not a bill. All
No.
right. All the best. All right. We'll talk soon. Okay.
All right.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.